we're going to call this meeting to order at 6:30. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next is agenda review. Any amendments for tonight?
I do not see any.
Seeing none, all right. Next is correspondence, visitors, and public comments. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make a comment? Don't see any. All right, moving right along. Approval of the minutes of April 19th and 25th. We'll start with the 19th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Dawn is a first. Terry is a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, motion to approve April 19th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. Peter, sorry I didn't see yours. 701 with Jen abstaining. All right, meeting minutes for April 25th. Is there a motion to approve those? Toby is a first.
A second.
Steve is a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the April 25th meeting minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries 701 with Jen abstaining. All right, next we are on to the MVU Administrative Reports. See, Dan is coming to the table.
So April was a rather short month, but we have a couple of highlights to point out. In April, we had the VCAT, which is the Vermont Kids Against Tobacco, and the OBX, our Voices Exposed conference. We had a bunch of students that went down to that. You'll see a picture of students that attended with some local legislators in there. So it was against vaping and tobacco use, and they came back with some really great ideas that we could take forth for next year. We also wanted to congratulate Ashlyn Dupree, Bailey Popple, and Henry Tanner, who were recently recognized by the Swanton VFW for their Voice of Democracy essays, the winning essays. So many thanks to their social studies teachers as well who participated in the competition. Some of you may have also seen recently Jay Hartman received his 500th softball win. You may have seen that. That's an honor bestowed, I think, only on one other person, one other coach here in the state. Has hit 500 wins, and he was recognized last Saturday right after that 500th win. Him and his assistant coach, Rich McVicker, have been at it for about 38 years. They were recognized with a banner congratulating them on their 500th win and a plaque. And as a result, what we'd like to do also is to dedicate the pit to them. And many of you who have been around for a long time know that the pit is the softball field. And on Saturday, May 21st, in honor of their 39 years of dedication to MVU softball, we would like to dedicate the pit to Jay Hartman and Rich McVicker. The opposing team, which is Mount Mansfield on that day, is aware of this. And they've moved the game time from an 11 o'clock to a 3 o'clock start. For that, in order to help us accommodate that, it would start before the game, roughly 2:45, take about 15 minutes. There's a sign that I've shared with Julie, which will go underneath the existing scoreboard right now that just says, you know, the pit dedicated to Jay Hartman and Rich McVicker. So we wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that, and if you have the ability to come on out, that'd be fantastic. Just to kind of give you an update on state testing as well. Yes.
When was that again? Sorry.
That is on May 21st. Yep, Saturday, May 21st. Yep. Yep. State testing update. We are just about 3/4 of the way done for grades 9 for the SBAC testing. And grades 7 and 8 are actually going to start next week, and there's a complete schedule for them for about 2 weeks. So we don't kind of hammer them all at once, but it's a kind of a slow progression to get their English and their math SBAC testing in. The AP testing began this week as well. We've got about 46 students taking the advanced placement test this year. And through our federal grant, we're actually able to pay for one test for each student. So we're quite proud of that as well. Just wanted to congratulate all the people that participated in this year's musical. It was the first musical since 2019, Mary Poppins. Great crowds. I know the 5th and 6th graders also had the opportunity to come on up and see the dress rehearsal. And if you had the opportunity to see it, it was absolutely a fantastic show. So hopefully everybody had the opportunity to see it. It was really, really well done. A copy of the newsletters there. May, unlike April, is an incredibly busy month. We have National Honor Society and National Junior Honor Society inductions coming up next week. We are coming back to Step Up Day, which is the day that all the 6th grade students come up to MVU, kind of go through the building, get to see it, figure out what their prime groups are for next year. That's coming up at the end of this month, May 27th. Over Memorial Day weekend, we have the prom at the Abbey at 7 to 10 on the 29th. We are still having 8th grade celebration on June 8th and high school graduation at 7 p.m. on June 10th. All right. So I know a lot of information there, but any questions for me?
What time of night is middle school?
6 p.m.
6?
6 p.m. Yep. 6 p.m. start. I want to make sure I formally invite you to that.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan?
Yes.
So I just have AP testing,
Yes.
stuff that I'm interested in. So 46 students are taking,
Various AP testing. Yep.
out of how many would you say? Like how many students do you think chose?
With the total the total enrollment out of all the AP classes?
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. I can get that. I can look it up for you. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. I would probably put it.
Like double?
Yeah. What's that?
I would say that we've noticed a trend, and I don't think that COVID helped, but the number of students taking the AP test declining, especially in the, like, for example, AP Psych always has really high enrollment, but we also offer that for dual enrollment, and many students elect to take AP Psych for dual enrollment through CCD rather than take the AC test. It's more of a guarantee.
So but are numbers higher than last year?
I would have to go back and see, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not 100%
I'm
sure.
just curious what direction we're headed in.
Okay.
Who pays for the AP exam for students?
Who proctors it?
Who pays for
Who
it?
pays for it? We're paying for one test for everybody. Other than that, the families have to pay for it. Any other additional tests?
Do you ever run into a situation where you think a student avoids it because he or she can't afford it?
We do let them know that if there's a situation where finances are an issue, to talk to their guidance counselor and.
So I would never want a student.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, we're in the same boat. We never want to see a kid get turned away from taking an AP exam. So, yep. And there are some funds there that available for that.
Anything else for Dan? I'll just say my family did get a chance to go enjoy Mary Poppins, and it was a great show. Everybody loved it. The kids on stage and backstage and in the pit and up in the lighting booth all did a great job. So
Thank you.
lots of appreciation for all the adults who were involved in that.
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All right,
Thanks, Dan.
thank you. Yep.
All right. Next on the agenda is our SRO update. And I have a couple of gentlemen here.
And you want to introduce our SROs?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You can sit here.
So some of you may remember Officer Kevin Cleary, who has been with us for a number of years, recently retired and is still as an acting SRO with us a couple of days a week, and Officer Dean Scott. So we Julie had wanted to invite them up and to kind of give a little bit of a presentation for you guys about a synopsis of the year and kind of their role and what they do. To give you guys a little bit of data as to what they have been doing. All right, so gentlemen, it's all you.
Well, glad to meet you guys. I'm Dean Scott, officer of the Swanton Police Department. I've been there about 11, 12 years. Also a paramedic. Been in EMS for about 35 years. Asked us to come up here and do a little presentation on the SRO program that we do. I've been there for quite a while, long time. There was previously to Kevin. Kevin's been there 13 years, is that correct? 13 years in August. I did have a PowerPoint, but I didn't know if you guys had some way to play it, so I just made copies for you so you guys can just kind of follow along. So the first thing is just to introduce ourselves. As you see on the first page, myself and Officer Claridge with the update. Second page, or on the second page of you guys, I guess I've got them separate on mine, but the bottom there with behavior issues stemming from. Basically what I've learned, I started this year back in May of last year, so I've been there about a year now, minus the summertime. What the issues I see that are stemming from, a lot from COVID-19, as we all know. Mask mandates was an issue, especially with kids. They had an issue with not seeing their faces and stuff like that. Same things everybody's been dealing with. Returning to in-person learning is another thing. A lot of kids have been away. I'm sure you guys have all discussed this. You know how it is. So you have a few behavior issues stemming from those things. And then we have the duties of the SRO. I don't know if everybody's familiar with what the duties are for the SRO. The assistant superintendent, principals, faculty, staff. Enforce the campus code of conduct and other school rules, or to maintain a safe learning environment. That's our main goal. Especially if it gets to the point where nothing else can be done. We staff to step in. Promote positive interaction between law enforcement and students. Another main goal we have is trying to get that reaction between us and the kids, so they can come to us if they have any problems like that, and we can kind of be that liaison between the school and them and the police department, any other department that he might need to deal with, newsy or the state's attorney's office. Provide students, staff, and parents with familiarization and recognition of law enforcement. Recognizable law enforcement contact, have somebody there that they can talk to. Establish possible working relationships with students, staff, and parents to prevent crime, disorder, substance abuse, and other negative pressure. These are all standard duties that all SROs do. Kind of a canned thing, I want to say.
May we ask questions to go along, or do you want to wait until we're all done?
That's up to you guys.
Let's hold it before the end, I think.
Okay.
I might talk a little fast, I'm sorry, but you can slow me down anytime. Basically, Kevin and I put kind of the things that we do as SROs up there. Assisting formulating a school safety plan. We've been working on kind of revamping that and getting that up to date. We confer with parents and guardians on all kinds of issues. We make referrals to Northwestern Counseling Support Services almost on a daily basis. Develop dialogue with all students concerning a number of issues. We address online bullying. Confer and consult with Franklin County State's Attorney's Office. We interview and support crime victims, sexual assault victims, also neglect victims. We respond to after-hours calls from students and parents. Kevin can tell you about a lot of calls that we've received from students after hours at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They have issues and stuff that he's come out and addressed and helped them out with. Bullying prevention and intervention, do a lot of that. Interdiction and confiscation of potential weapons. That's from pocket knives, tasers to handguns. We've intervened in negotiated physical confrontations, the normal fight that we have. We're members of the school crisis and threat assessment team. We assess bond threats and rumors. We've had a few in the last year. Identify and interview potential armed suspects. Providing high visibility police presence. We try to do that after there's like a school shooting somewhere or some situation in the country, that we kind of make sure that we have a presence there. It's been recorded that a lot of copycat things can happen, so we make sure that we make a presence there at that time frame. We identify students with alcohol, controlled substance, self-harm, and vaping issues. Attend meetings regarding student educational plans and integrated mental health strategies. Act 51 meetings and stuff like that, try to be part of that to help them move forward. We file reports on abuse and neglect with DCF and NUSI. DCF is the Department of Children and Families, and NUSI is the Northwestern Unit of Special Investigations. We turn to the incidents at MVU 2022. This is a new incident reporting system that the state has gone to. We started January 1st. So this graph here is from January 1st to May 2nd, which was yesterday. We've been starting putting our information into this system. As you can see, juvenile problems were 16. Welfare check and suicide was 13. We dealt with 2 welfare and suicide checks yesterday. So that's how much we've had done in this year. Juvenile problems go from unrelated problems to vaping to other behavior issues. That's probably, it goes in kind of in that whole one column, juvenile problems. The after hour alarms are there 3. We've dealt with 4 sexual assaults this year, in the last 4 months, and 2 sex offenses, which is due possibly to lewd and lascivious conduct. And on that other, I don't know if it's on the same page, maybe the next page, is just broken down again from January 1st to May 2nd. What calls that Kevin and I have dealt with in the system. So we can come back to that if you guys want to ask questions of that when I get done, just probably.
Sure, there will be some questions.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will have some questions. Then the goals and objectives, basically again, we establish working relationship, positive working relationship in a cooperative effort to prevent juvenile delinquency and assist the student development. We protect the constitutional and civil rights of students. We maintain a safe and secure environment on school campuses, which will be conducive to learning. We promote positive attitudes regarding the role of police in society through non-punitive alliance-building interactions with student and staff. We conduct criminal investigations and refer students' cases to the restorative justice program and court diversion to the greatest extent possible. We ensure all Swanton Police Department officers understand the need, strengths, and challenges of various ages, culture, and ability groups. And again, we just have this here that we want to continue the program. We look forward to building the program's success. It's been building for years. It's getting better every year. We really have some positive long-term relationships. Kevin has relationships with people that are in their 20s, late 20s, that come back to the school and to see him and talk to him about how they've made progress in their life. Military, business, all kinds of different positions they're in. And also I think the success of this program is due a lot to Jay Hartman, Steve Messier, Dan Palmer, Devin Quinlan, Bob Corey, Colin Leary, excellent people to work with. They're really excellent people to work with. I believe that's all we have. So that was last, but I'm sure you guys have some questions.
Thanks. Don, you're up first.
Okay, I have a few questions. Going back to page 2, do you ever get, I guess I'll call it referrals, but contact from parents or grandparents who might be concerned about their student regarding crime? I live down the village of Swampton. Sometimes there are little groups that kind of hang out. Some of them are very positive, some of them are not positive at all. But I know some of them live in some challenging home situations where they're not, either not adults or not adults that either have the time or take the time. And I wonder if anybody ever reached out to the school or your office to say, you know, do you kind of keep an eye out, or can you give us some suggestions, because we think our grandson or our son is hanging out with.
We do a lot with that. I think that's basically what the SRO program is. Instead of, I worked in the streets, so I know how it is. You go and deal with that situation, then we have to move on to another situation. The SRO program, you can, juvenile has an issue, we can look a lot more into it, you know. Talk to the family, we have time to see what their family life is like, what we can help out with that. So that kind of gives us more of an idea on how to move forward with that situation. A lot of them have, you know, not so great family lives, or they got something going on in their life that's causing this issue that we can address and work with and try to move them forward in their life.
This question, go ahead, you were going to say something.
I think it's important to characterize that we have an ongoing general and specific dialogue with most of the kids in the school. We are not strangers to the kids. They call Dean, Dean, they call me Kev. There's an ongoing dialogue that extends beyond the school, which has saved lives, and that is that they feel very much, they feel very comfortable in calling us after hours with life-threatening situations. Sometimes in the summer, it's just because they're lonely, they want to talk to somebody at 11 o'clock at night. So the phone rings and you talk, you make sure they're safe. Other times the phone will ring and somebody's had too much to drink, and or a group of them have had too much to drink and can't drive. So you go out, you pick them up, and sometimes you buy them some coffee, sometimes you just take them home so that they're safe. We're not in the funeral home Monday morning picking out coffins. I've had people call me. The first month or two I was here, I had a call one night from a young man who said, "Hi Kev, what are you doing?" It was about 2 a.m. I said, "Well, I'm sitting on the side of the bed talking to you." And he says, "Well, I'm going to blow my brains out. I'm down in Swanton Park." And I said, "Oh, really?" Well, I was kind of taken by surprise because I came from a different type of law enforcement. This was like my second month. I said, "Well, you can't do that until we talk because we're pals, right?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then you can't go do something like this without talking to me. You know, you're gonna," yeah. So I went down, met him. It was the coldest night that ever blew, about 40 below zero. And we sat on the bench, and he finally decided he wasn't going to do away with himself. He wasn't going to end his life. And that was the first intervention after hours. I had another kid a couple of years later who decided he wanted to hang himself. And his buddies called and said, "Kev, he's going to do it. This is where he's at. We're going to try to get over there." Myself and another officer who was closer, because I'm in Rouse's Point, I called him, he responded, we got there. That young man is a friend of mine today. Most of the kids at school, we don't have relationships. We have relationships at the beginning of our introductions, and most of them, I think, evolve into friendships. And they feel completely at home to come in and talk to us about any issue there is. We're not, I don't dress like this. Going to school, I usually have a sweatshirt on and some blue jeans, and I'm very approachable because I'm old and I'm overweight, and they like to talk to me, and we talk about everything. And when I come once a week to sub, I can help because I've been 22 years as a college adjunct. You know, I've taught criminal justice, and I have a good background in history. So we all have that going together with us. There are a lot of sad stories. but we are engaged on the street and in the schools. We have tremendous support from Mr. Palmer and Jay. Jay was a wonderful man. I think we're gonna really miss him. I work with wonderful people. Steve Messier and Devin Quinlan and Bob Corey are the school's secret weapon. They do great things with kids who are struggling. We have kids who are angry, kids who are confused, kids who are all a combination of different emotions. They're addressed. I can't begin to tell you how much respect I have individually and professionally for the people that I work with. The last 13, coming up on 13 years have been tremendous. We talk to each other after hours. I keep Steve and the principals briefed. If it's something that may be coming over the horizon that we've dealt with at night, my people keep me informed. I'm in the station in the morning at 6 o'clock. If there's anything going on, we know about it, but they're briefed as soon as we're briefed. Kids need friends, and I don't believe in arresting kids generally, and I don't believe in arresting alcoholics or junkies or addicts, whatever you want to call them today. People who are sick do not belong in prison. Our problem is that when their illnesses and their diseases manifest in criminal behavior, then we are duty-bound to intervene officially. But basically, we also have an excellent relationship with Northwest Council. I just brought a young man down there yesterday. He went down with me voluntarily. We've done that with great success throughout my tenure here. We have wonderful people, like I said, looking after the children in this district. He was manifesting, he came in to see Dean and I, and he sat down, he was manifesting all types of confusion and behavior that looked like it could be trending towards a suicide. We called his dad, we couldn't get him, we went out to the house, we picked Dad up and said, look, you need to come down to the school and meet with us. He's struggling. Dad came down, our people from special ed and our psychological, people who handle our psychological problems on staff, came in, he signed the papers, and he and I were on our way down to Northwest. We had a really good meeting there. They did some excellent work. It was about 3 hours. And on the way back, I brought him some McDonald's because he was hungry. And he went into the cafeteria with his friends, interacted with them. The kids there are very good, taking care of each other. They took a lot of his food too, and then he had a grand time. And the day ended well. We have kids who struggle with their academics, and we help them with that. I tutor history and criminal justice, and they're intertwined, so it's very easy to get them interested. And some of our kids are hungry for that. They're hungry for a little attention, and they get it. They get it. There's nothing punitive or mean about this school. In my experience as a private citizen and as a cop of 51 years, college graduate myself, I don't think I've ever met a more accommodating group of professionals in education in my entire life. These people are tremendous. Yes, dear?
I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And first of all, the first one is that, I mean, in terms of saving one student's life makes the position totally worthwhile.
Would you speak up?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, my immune system is down these days, so but saving one kid's life makes it worthwhile to have an SRO officer. So that's perfect. I think though, I can tell that you're very kind and the kids like you and everything. So anecdotally, I think there's some great stories here. I would like to focus a little bit on the facts though, the statistics, the overlying societal kind of things that people want to know in our district as to where the, like, it seems to me, just looking at all this, they do some great things. I never even thought of the night stuff. But I guess what comes to my mind is, what is the police department? Do those calls come into the police department and then they call you? Or do kids, I mean, how are you getting involved like this? And then the other question is, what about the, I know it says things that SROs do, and I'm just curious as to how would a parent know what an SRO is doing versus what administration is doing? And how do we how do we answer how are you taking care of some of the perceptions?
We are, I don't know of any adverse perceptions. I know people always have complaints with educators and cops and such. That goes along with any democracy. But we're completely interfaced with, we are police officers, we work for the Swanton Police Department, but we're completely interfaced with the school's administration. We're there every day together, working side by side. We know firsthand who the kids are who are struggling, who's not gonna be on time for school, and, oh, I missed my bus, that's no problem, I'll come get you. It's all very accommodative. We meet with parents. Sometimes parents don't wanna come out. We have that problem. Sometimes they won't answer the phone for the school. We also, and we have to acknowledge it, have a social and economic challenge here. There's a lot of kids who don't have anything, and I mean anything. The level of poverty here is significant. I have other children who are good students, but not as good as they could be because it's nothing to do with the academic instruction. It has to do with the economics of the area. And so they find themselves working more and paying less time to their attention to their studies.
Yeah, but why is it an SRO officer versus a school counselor? That's I guess what I'm trying to get at. I think we need SRO officers, so don't get me wrong, an SRO, what I'm trying to figure out though is what kinds of things are, like, it's hard for me to, there's so much need up there, obviously, but these cases, MVU, from January to May 2nd, are these incidents from police in Swanton that received, and they involved MVU, or are these just calls or things
Call
happening?
between Kevin and
These are all you, okay, that's what I was thinking, so obviously there's a need, but what I'm wondering is, where are the boundaries or the parameters between what the counselors are doing and what the SRO comes in?
Well, I think that's what I'm trying to drive home. And maybe
I'm not getting it
clear.
somehow.
I am in league and in sync with every guidance counselor in the school. So is Dean. I'm in league with, or not in league, but I am interfaced with special education.
In league, I got it.
Yeah, and we are interfaced with every operation in the school. We work on safety plans to keep kids safe.
Yeah,
I wish
makes
Steve
sense.
Messier were here tonight, he and his, Devin. They are tremendous people. We burn the midnight oil sometimes to try to get a safety plan right, so that two students don't cross paths, or so that the students can comply with maybe some court-ordered terms of release. We have all of those things. We were on a first-name basis with people down at NCCS. We don't operate in what we would call clusters. We operate together.
And with the absentee people, like our yeah, so this is great, this is really, I think this is wonderful information to have. You know, the statistics that you've got here and all this, it's really great, thank you.
To answer your question a little more is when they come to us, it's usually there's an issue, a problem, mostly like they go to their guidance counselor, it's usually either school related or something like that. Usually when it gets to us, it's more of a behavior problem or something, even a law issue that they have. So they come to us and kind of make friends. We can kind of, we're that facilitator between, you know, them getting a ticket or having an interaction with a police officer on the street and not really knowing what to do when they're scared. They come to us and we can kind of, you know, try to facilitate that interaction. I think that's where we see more than the guidance counselor does.
Wow, the suicide prevention is huge.
Yes, it's been increased this year, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, this is just like fact stuff, because I don't know. So how many SRO officers are there?
Here in this district, or are we talking in the state?
Here,
Just the two of us.
just two.
Yeah.
So that's primarily for the high school, like does that
Yes.
encompass so just the high school?
Yep,
So are you two like 24/7?
more or less, yeah. I mean, we have our regular school hours, but as we talked before, they call it all hours, we'll come at it any time.
So primarily like during school hours and then sort of on call?
Kind of, yep. For juvenile problems, we're kind of on call for that.
And then So do you remain full law enforcement authority?
Yes,
Like,
yes,
on the same law enforcement, like?
we work under
continuing
under the
force,
police department, yeah.
And you're armed?
Yes, we are.
And do you have other mitigations aside from that, like taser, pepper spray, or
No.
are you just kind of minimalistic?
Minimalistic. This is what I wear in the uniform. It's the shirt, pants, I have a badge and a gun. I do carry a set of cuffs on this side.
And in terms of the kind of scares that you've had, in terms of like bomb threats, have they all turned out to be hoax?
More or less, some were a little different. You know, the initial call, or what you want to call it, was kind of concerning, but most of them have come out to be just, you know, kind of kids being, you know, trying to be cool or something like that. Saying things on the bus was a big one. We've had an issue with some kids saying that they wanted to blow up the dam in Highgate, so that got the FBI involved, and then the Division of Public Safety in the United States for dams, there's a special force of that had to come in and talk with us, just because they made that threat to a dam.
There's been no
No
actual materials that was
No.
produced, just kids talk.
Yes.
And then when you're doing like active shooter and stuff like that,
Yep.
is it, you guys coordinate that?
Yes.
And then for this year, so without going back to prior to the mask policy being changed, so what's been the issue with the returning to in-person learning that has caused,
I think it's just they weren't, you know, it's just like anybody else, they're not with their friends, they're not with their enemies, they're not with, you know, anybody else that's there. A lot of it was social media before, they talked back and forth, got in fights back and forth, but all over social media. And then once everybody joined together, it was kind of some tensions here and there. It was just everybody getting back together. I mean, I'm no expert on it, this is what I saw.
yeah, but so like, I'm just asking kind of, like, how is that materialized? Because I have a number of students that I work with who literally come from it and said that fights and stuff has been an issue.
Yep.
And there's some of that's inevitable, and there's some of that can turn bad, right? Depending on the area, like,
Correct.
there's places that these things turn deadly, right?
Yep.
So I'm just trying to gauge like what's happening here.
Yep.
What are we seeing?
I think kind of the normal, I mean, we're gonna have some fights, we've had some fights. I mean, you're gonna have that when you've got teenage boys in with the situation. You've got people from all walks of life, especially in a rural area like this. We have people from different social venues. So you're gonna have your fights. I mean, if you,
The pandemic turned all the dynamics upside down. And if you're in adolescence, if you're in the midst of adolescence, you have your own struggles. And when that structure, which is the school for 7 hours a day, with all the social contacts, all the academic work, that gives the student and the youngster some structure, some routine. Like during the course of the day, we laugh, we fool, we joke, we study, we tutor. We struggle with algebra, or we have those routine difficulties. But when you've been away from that structure, and you haven't been with your friends, and you haven't, you have to reaffirm those social relationships, and you need some time to calm, and you need some time to gather yourself, and then with help from the adults who are there, we take the time to accommodate and explore those issues that surface as a result of the disconnection that was caused by the pandemic. You just don't throw kids back into a thing. We're out and about, and I speak about being out and about. We're out and about and among the children all day long. That's the whole school. Everybody from Mr. Palmer to our custodians, who are very nice people, keep the place clean, and they interact with the kids. There is a very, very calm atmosphere there. And right now, I have my phone out in my car. That's the first time I've been out and away from that phone since I took this job. On 2 or 3 occasions when I was on vacation, over the years, I would call in from Boston or Gettysburg or Washington, D.C. I just got a call from so-and-so, they need help, we're there for them.
No, it sounds like you guys do a fantastic job.
We-
And
but I
I
think-
can only imagine, I wish I had that when I was at school. But what I'm just trying to kind of drill down on is really just two things that I find are concerning. So one, the suicide check and welfare thing, right? So it's a growing problem that for adolescents, things that used to be issues for, I want to say our generation, were like, we drank more, smoked more, we fought more, there's more sex, like, all those things, all these indicators have actually gone down for most of the kids who are finishing high school and just graduating. Mental health and suicide has gone up exponentially, especially from COVID. So what I'm just trying to ask is, like, if we're transitioning from like the mask and all the damage that's been done in the last 2 years, so where is that piece fitting in? So we have the kid who says, okay, I'm feeling bad, and you do your job and that's excellent, and they call you. Where does that fit back into like the school? And then where does that go? And like what are the defining things to make sure that that keeps working well? Do you understand what I'm asking, Julie, right? Like, so
I
what
do, and so the SRO team is a part of that, and as Kevin's been sharing, we have social workers, we have administrators, we have psychologists, we have guidance counselors, we have very close relationships, we have clinicians that we contract with. So we have a very active relationship between mental health, and we're very aware of that increase. Actually, Jeff Benet, our Indian Director of Indian Affairs, actually has worked with, and I'm not gonna say who because I'll get it wrong, but they have secured a grant. He's worked for several years because the rates of suicide attempts in the Native American population, and particularly around here, has been high. So he's created this grant to really work on that and increase suicide prevention measures. So it's, you know, there are a lot of people working on it
Okay, so
all the
thank
time.
you.
Right.
All right, that was it.
Absolutely.
The cell phone is the great disruptor. It is the one, it's the one factor that we can't get a handle on. And if you're an adolescent, you're on it all the time. We have a ban on having the devices even out. But when you have kids who are struggling, a lot of that struggle comes from the fact that they are being bombarded all day long and all night long with people who have no healthy interests and people they shouldn't be in touch with, and their peers who may be struggling and they're passing it along. We don't do any homework. We stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we're overtired. And when we hit the front door at 8 o'clock, we're grumpy or we're fatigued. And then our teaching staff and our support staff has to try to do something with that situation to facilitate education. I think the cell phone is the great disruptor. I think it's the leading challenge for American education from what I have seen. Even in the colleges, they cannot get off that device. But when you're young and impressionable and someone calls you a name or makes a remark about you or your family, and they live in West Virginia, and you have no frame of reference, or you don't have the social experience or credential to say, okay, I'm gonna block you, no, I'm gonna engage you, I'm gonna sit up all night using profanity and ignoring my studies. These are the problems that the classroom teachers and the administration are up against in just trying to deliver an education. It's a challenge.
Mr. Chairman, this has been a good discussion.
Yes, it has. I appreciate the two of you coming to. Yeah, we got one more over here, Jen.
A couple quick questions. The sexual assault and the sex offense, is that happening in the school? Or is that happening outside of school in the home?
I believe a couple of them were outside of the school, but had to do with a couple of students, so we dealt with the repercussions at the school. Some happened in school. I believe the sexual assaults are actually cases that have gone to court or going to court. The other one's like a lewd and lascivious stuff that may or not go to court, that I deal with too.
Thanks for asking that, I was wondering.
Yeah, it's like you've got like
That's-
safety, you have safety.
The
a
school has
safety net.
safety plans and stuff in place for the 2 or 3 individuals that might have encountered that situation. That's more of a school issue, they make a safety plan, making sure the kids are in the same class and stuff like that.
So that was my question too, the call types that you're listing here, it's not just on school grounds, it's involving a student that could be in or outside
More or
the
less,
front.
yeah.
Okay.
Probably 90% or more is actually happened at MVU. Some of the cases there have, we've gone to the house and dealt with the situation.
Yeah.
A lot of the suicide prevention, sometimes it's the call, at 3 o'clock in the morning, that we go to their house or go to the park, as Kevin had said. That's another case that we dealt with, suicide prevention. Didn't happen at the school, but it was basically connected with school. They knew us, they called us. We got them help. That was our main objective.
Do you have like an office there?
Yes.
But you walk around as
Yep.
well? And just out of curiosity, on the outside of your office, so if a student doesn't possibly feel comfortable enough to just go in your office and talk to you, do you have like a phone number posted how they can reach you outside of their office?
A lot of the guidance counselors that come to me and said this person doesn't really feel comfortable going to your office because it's a police office kind of thing. And we made arrangements to either go to his office or they felt more comfortable going somewhere else. The kids didn't see them go.
But I mean,
to my
phone
office.
call wise, even if they don't feel comfortable going to their guidance counselor and they don't feel comfortable coming to you, I was just wondering if you had a phone number posted so that they could call you maybe on their time. Oh,
I don't yet. Kevin, most of the kids in school have Kevin's personal cell phone number, so they call him, like I say, any day of the night. They
but the
get
ones
home-
that he's interacted with already.
Yes.
So I'm talking about ones that
Yeah.
you haven't interacted with, give them,
I'm, like I said, I'm just starting, so this is my first year. I've given out my card, so there's a number on that card that they can contact. It will be my dispatcher that will dispatch me. So there is a way they can get hold of me. Other than that, it's my office number.
So one thing about sexual assault reporting is that there should be numerous ways
Yep.
for individuals and victims to be able to report it.
Yep.
So they can have it's reported where you're going to report such crime and you know that it's gonna be out there. There's also unreported where you can go and you can disclose to somebody not feeling comfortable to put everything out there, and then there's only a specific team that works with you and works with you through the process, because maybe you don't feel comfortable, maybe you feel like you've been a victim, maybe you feel like if it's known that you've reported this case that more ramifications could come, right? I would think that should be something that should be brought in within your plan.
Yep.
To have it that there's many numerous ways that people can report any sort of sexual crime, and so that both the perpetrator and the victim can be dealt with accordingly and properly and getting the help that they need quickly.
In a sexual assault situation, something like that, we take the initial information. It's then transferred to Newsy, which is a Northwestern Unit for Special Investigations. They do all that. They do, talk to each thing. They have all that. So we don't actually do the investigation. So
Yeah, it's
it's
just,
all. It's a
I'm just
special
trying to
team.
piggyback, Jen, I just hope that there's numerous ways that people can get a hold of it, because
Yep.
if
I don't know what the
there's-
school has if they have an actual.
We have mandated sexual harassment policy under Title IX, which is a federal policy, and we also have a whole process that's a state harassment, hazing and bullying policy, and all the contact numbers of school professionals are right there. And it's trained, people are trained on it every year.
Devin, I do have a quick question, I think it's more for Julie. How do we fund this program right now?
We do it through the local budget.
It's a low budget, okay, 100%?
Well, there's an offsetting grant that is applied before we receive the services, on the police department side, the small village side.
So it's funded by the local district, but at a reduced rate.
Right, the net of the, after
Got
the
it.
grant, yes.
Thanks, Laura. All right, thank you both for
Thank you.
coming in tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that last page, there's our numbers and contact information. Feel free to contact us anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really helpful.
All right. it's one that's been a future agenda item for a long time, so I'm glad we got a chance
thank you.
to.
But we're not done with
Dive
that,
into
because
that.
we've got to look at the elementary.
There isn't an elementary. No, they lost the grant.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right, next up is Julie for the Superintendent Central Office update.
I just wanted to preview in my written newsletter, and we have updates from Kosha, who's not here today, and from Early Ed, and from our after-school program as well. But I wanted to share a few highlights from me, and then that's all I'll do. If you go in there, you'll be able to have a link to the thought exchange where we culminated 2 years worth of prep work in a thought exchange on portrait of a graduate characteristics, and so we compiled that data, and you will have a presentation from students and some of the folks from Up for Learning on that. But the school administration is going to work together to condense those characteristics to a smaller set of 6 so that then the board can adopt them, and then we'll talk about a visual that makes sense, and we'll go from there. But we've been working on that. I put a little information, Highgate is continuing to have its community visit process with the Council on Rural Development, and I put in one of their priorities, and I was on a field trip with Mr. Mayshe today. We went to the Morgan Horse Farm. I just want to dress like this. I put some pictures in the drive that you'll like. It's a wonderful field trip. And he was sharing with me that they were supposed to have 3 priorities for the town of Highgate, but I think that Mr. Mayshe may have negotiated with the group there to make 4. And one of them is about advancing career training, workforce development, and agricultural career pathways in Highgate. And there will be another meeting May 26th where they will actually create steering committees and connect those committees with experts. So we'll have to engage with them to make sure that it's very clear how that steering committee interfaces with the Ag Advisory Committee and the school, but I think it's all very good for developing agricultural pathways in our community. And I wanted to make sure I put some updates in there around the legislature and where we are right now. It looks like pupil weighting will be passing pretty soon, should be coming out of conference, and they went with adjusting weights rather than changing it radically, which I'm not surprised that they did. It should benefit our district somewhat. And one of the things I know you wanted to talk about, Don, is PCBs. And I'm sure that any of you that get emails from the Vermont School Board Association have seen emails to reach out to your legislators. I certainly did as well, because our schools are going to be tested for PCBs next October through December. The schedule was released, a few weeks ago. And they're prioritizing schools of a certain age, schools in certain types of community where poverty levels are. They did a really nice job actually at prioritizing schools they think are going to be the neediest. So Highgate School, MVU, and Swanton School, probably the Babcock building. So we're really looking at buildings that are pre-1980, will be tested. And there is no money allocated from they're paying for testing, but they're not paying for any mitigation strategies. Now the whole Burlington issue and what happened there, that did not go through the state. They just sort of did what they did, looking at their own reports. So I actually met with the head of environment, it's been a long day on the horse farm. So I'm gonna get the name of the committee wrong, but the department in charge of environmental conservation, or that's in charge of this whole process. And they are going to, when they test your school, they're not gonna just release results and say, good luck to you all. I mean, they're gonna come and have community meetings and help explain what the results mean. But we really need to pay attention to this issue, because if schools are not safe, or if the public even perceives that a school isn't safe, then we need to do a thing about that. And so we were strongly advocating that the legislature put aside some money to mitigate any findings that happen that are actionable. So I want to continue to make sure
Last
that
I
we
heard,
do
they
that.
hadn't done that.
No, they have not yet. They have not yet. But even today, the Vermont Digger had an article that was highlighting that need. So as much as, you know, this board has goals around advocacy, I think that would be a pretty strong one to reach out to senators and legislators in your area.
You know, in past years, we had issues in Highgate because I helped clean it up. Swanton, did they have the same issues that we had with?
That's asbestos.
That's a
Abatement,
special.
abatement, yeah.
PCBs are, what are they? Polychlorinated biphenyls. And they were using construction materials, but they're different from asbestos. So this is new. About 2 years ago, the legislature passed the bill saying we're all gonna get tested, and they set the rates and everything.
But they have reset the standard, right?
Yes, they have.
Which could make me think. You noticed at the last meeting, when the lady asked about budget, I thought that's what she was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Well, I apologize, because I thought that was not where we were going.
It would have made more sense for it to be about what you were talking about.
Any other questions for Julie? All right, thanks, Julie. Next on the agenda is a budget revote discussion.
Mr. Chairman, can we at least hear a hi from our fine people that work in central
Sure.
office? Our part of the budget, so we know all the good things they're doing.
I voted for those, they all said that they're really tired and might fall asleep because they're so comfortable. That's why we went with the wood.
Okay.
All right, so we had this item on the agenda just so we could do a quick debrief on the budget vote that we just completed last week. So I guess I'll start by thanking the community for supporting the budget and passing the budget. It's much needed, and lots of good things are happening in our schools for our kids, so that's much appreciated. Also comment that it was a particularly close vote, again. And so there are still folks out there who were not supportive of the budget as presented, and we have an obligation to make sure that we're using these funds reasonably and responsibly and getting the results that we are seeking. So I just wanted to say that too and recognize that in a close vote there are two sides of this, even though it squeaked by. So anyone else have any thoughts or comments they'd like to make, Jen?
Do we have, like, from each town, how many people actually voted?
It's a combined vote.
Oh, this combined?
Yep.
Just because I don't know if I should feel strongly that people weren't supportive of the budget. Like I put in my email, I don't know who did get it, because I did go up there twice, to Highgate. And at 5:30, they only had 224 or something, and really, they were shocked themselves, Wendy, about how small amount of people they had that actually went and voted. So I don't know if I agree with the opinion that people didn't support it. I just think there was personally a lack of people who went and voted a second time around.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, we won't see it by town. We know, a little over 1,000 was the total
Yeah.
vote
Yeah.
count.
And
It wasn't too much lower than the first vote.
No.
Unfortunately.
Because I didn't know what the first vote was.
Wasn't it about
That's
1,400?
First
No,
one
it
was
was
six,
not-
it was like
yeah.
640 to 610.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like 1,200 something in the
Yeah,
first
it's
vote. so
just, it
wasn't-
just seems like
Yeah, it's low.
really low numbers of voting.
On town meeting day, even,
Yeah,
yep.
I mean, I've been to town meeting days, I've been, to listen, I've been there to vote, always voted, and it's just always, you're waiting in line to go and vote.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of,
You can
shocked
always
with-
call your town clerk and say how many registered voters in Highgate, how many people voted that day. That'll give you a pretty good perception on,
yeah, I'd like to see those
That's a good
numbers,
idea.
I really
it's
would.
public information.
Is it, I'll just, in my
Me-
spare time, Don, I'll go on.
I went and looked
I will
at
go
our
for it.
last several votes, And I, of course, don't have it right in front of me. But in presidential election years, we have a higher turnout.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's it. So if there's a primary happening or something like that, we have a higher turnout, but it tends to be a pretty low turnout.
Guess it
I
just
think
goes-
Swanton had, I may be wrong, but I think Swanton had a higher percentage of voters than the other two towns. Probably had nothing to do with the school budget, but both the town and village voted on whether they could sell cannabis. So that was a big thing.
Peter has his hand raised.
Peter, we can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're not muted, but we're not able to hear you, so we have a mic issue there. I'll look around and see if anyone else has a comment. We'll come back to you, Peter.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
All right, it's working now. Go ahead, Peter.
You can hear me now?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay. No, I was just, I didn't hear everything Jen said, but I think Dawn answered the question that we are able to see how many people voted from each town, so we can get those numbers. And I also think that's important. I think that we're getting the word out there, but I don't know if we're I almost wonder if we need to target, I don't know how many of the people that have skin in the game, that parents that have kids going to school, I know they're really busy, and I don't know, from things I've heard, people that were voting, I'm not sure that many parents are voting, and how we can target that audience more and get the word, and how critical it is for parents to get out there and vote and have a say in what their students have. So I think Julie brought up the Portrait to a Graduate. I think programs like that we need, so we can get out to the public what's going on in our school. We really need to support or promote, I should say, our schools more. We've got some wonderful elementary schools in our district. I think we've done, I think, a better job in the elementary schools of promoting it. I think we need to do the same thing into the high school, to show people what's going on in our schools and to get our support. And I don't know if it's through media or what, but it needs to be constant, not just when we're coming up for a budget vote. But
Yeah.
I think we can discuss all these things when we have our annual roundtable or whatever we call it, when we put our goals together. But I think that's one important discussion that we need to have.
Was Terry next?
Thank you. Oops, sorry, there was a mouse, there's glasses here. What I was gonna ask or say was, I did hear, like Peter said, that people that said that they weren't seeing parents coming out to vote, that it wasn't the demographics that they were seeing so much. And also, I do know that from doing some social media, I think some people that I really, I respect a lot of these people, and they were really had some issues with the increase. That's what they noticed, and I think it's really a problem the way you put it, Laura, that it was only 3% over so many years versus that 7 point whatever that people were looking at, the article language, and I think that really does a disservice, because it acts like they take it as we have a 7 point something budget increase, budget increase, and that's huge. So I don't know how we deal with that, but like you said, Peter, at the retreat, it's probably a good idea to talk about how we're gonna do that too.
Part of the waiting is that there's going to be a waiver to that article language for, I think, 3 years. So that will be helpful, and then we probably will never come back, was what we're hoping.
When is
So,
that happening?
Part of the waiting study.
The equalized pupil change bill because there will be many school districts that may have a 25% change.
Too bad we didn't have that this year.
I know,
Well, we've been trying for about 5 years, really, right?
it's been a while.
Wow.
Since we started that
Yeah,
that's
discussion.
fantastic.
Yep.
So that's if that bill passes, right?
It will,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, it's in conference
So
right
we won't
now.
have to worry about the wording next year,
We should
Yeah.
not, no.
hopefully.
Of course, we don't have to anyway,
So-
we're not gonna go up.
I just want to read you something. This is something that a parent wrote me, and I thought it was pretty spot on. They said, "Here are my thoughts," because I asked. I said, "What do you think about the vote? What do you think about the budget? All this stuff." And they wrote back, "Here are my thoughts. There are a few groups of voters. A, those who always vote yes in support of the schools. B, those who always vote no, no matter how they no, as they feel they're being taxed too much. C, those who vote yes or no based on how they personally feel about the schools, not specifically about the budget. And then D, those who vote year to year based on the presented budget and the details of the budget." And they go on to say, "A and B you likely won't need to spend much time on because it won't really change your vote. C is where the biggest work can be done. And D is all about getting the right info to the right people." And they finish with, "I guess he sees where it makes a difference from the last vote." That's good. And I thought that actually represents it like perfectly, because you're gonna have people that are gonna vote either way. And then you have those that are gonna appeal to like, what are the specifics of the budget? Okay, it went up 2%, down 2%. The largest contingency is always gonna be how they feel about the schools. And I think there has to be some honesty that a lot of people are not feeling great about things as we like just pulled out of like such a hard 2 years. So I think like the warning has to be like next budget vote, we don't know. Like it's so close, like we need to like mentally just think that that could be difficult depending if we're asking for more, depending on what increases that we might face. So I think addressing those issues of how people feel, like there's gotta be a couple big ones, whether it's grading, whether it's graduation rate, like whatever those big issues are that like people have concerns with, I feel like we just have to like know them, like just know what the issues are.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll make sure everybody else gets a check this time before I do, unless there's something.
No.
You know, I spent a lot of time over the years looking at budgets and things, but I don't want to take too much time tonight, but building on what you just said, we had a perfect storm. We had the people who didn't feel good about the school because of the mass. We had the group that has some concerns, whether it be our grading system or the curriculum. The economy is tanking for many people because of inflation. And then what did we took and had, you know, the whole issue around the school, other things happening in the community. I mean, many years you might get an economy, gasoline going to $4 a gallon is unheard of, but you get a jump. But all these things happen in about an 8 to 10 month period. But what I really would like to take a minute to say is I talked briefly with Peter, I exchanged a couple of emails with Terry, because I love numbers and demographics, and I did see in Swanton what I thought was a low turnout of parents. But you don't know if they're parents or not. But if they're probably 65 or 70 years old, they might be, or 80, they might be, who knows? But I didn't see that. But I would ask whether we do it at our strategic planning meeting or sometime. I came tonight saying I want to listen to what people say, but I'd like to have a meeting or some time between now and October, I'll say October 1st, when we can just talk about this. I know some of you people are going to say, yeah, he knows everything, he's done everything, but I'm going to tell you, in the 80s, IBM ran a training called Work Smarter, Not Harder. And basically what it says is, don't keep doing the things you've done to market, get out of the box. And I have used that so many times on things, and I'm not criticizing what we did, because I think we did what people wanted. But there's some wonderful things that we could do as a board to really find out how we need to get more yes votes. You're never going to do away with the no votes. You can almost predict if you followed MVU budgets when I was on the board and before I on the board, you You could almost pick a number of, in the hundreds, every year you're gonna get no vote. Doesn't make a difference what you do. Give out candy, you're gonna get so many no votes. And it's because those people, for whatever reason, are happy with the school. So, anyway, so I would just like to ask if we do have a meeting, I would like maybe 30 minutes just to share with you some of that work smarter, not harder, that IBM used when they brought together in their headquarters in Connecticut for school and community leaders back in the 80s. And even though it sounds old, I can't tell you how many times I've used that, and I use it a lot in politics, so. And if after you're hearing it, you don't like it, that's fine, but it's worked for me.
All right, thanks, Don. All right, seeing no other comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is the MVU softball dedication. So is there a motion to dedicate the softball field to,
I'd make that motion.
Peter's the first, I haven't even finished it yet. To Jay Hartman and Rich McVicker, and Peter's the first, is there a second? Jen is a second. All right, any discussion on this?
So I would just say that I will be voting in favor of it, but I do think this district needs a policy on naming.
I'm very
Because
much with you, Joe.
I think we really need a policy. We had one at the Swan School, because sometimes this can be a very contentious issue. So I think it's important that we have a policy on this. I'm not saying anything negative about this one, but I think a policy would help protect us all in the future. So that's all I have to add for discussion. I liked Swantons if we
Yeah.
wanna start somewhere, if we can find Swantons.
I can find it.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a point well taken, it's something I think Julie and I talked about as well, that would be prudent to standardize this process for the future.
And Peter just agreed to that, and I also note that as soon as Mr. Hartman heard his name, he got off the
I thought he disappeared.
Little attention is the best way to get him to leave, right?
There's a little history on in Swanton, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the select board named a fishing access for someone, and the community arose and said no, and they had to change it. So there are people out there that.
Yeah. I would just like to add that I'd hate to not do it because we don't have a policy.
Okay.
So in this case, I think it's important we do it, but then I think we really need a policy.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, alright, those in favor of dedicating the softball field to Jay Hartman and Rich McVicker, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. 9-0, we have everybody here, sorry. Alright, next on the agenda, warrants. Check warrants.
I have those.
You will read those.
Okay, these are for the month of April 2022. Accounts payable showing 1,207,465.42. Payroll checks total 65,438.75. Payroll other disbursements 2,315,955.71. Payroll deductions totaling 659,372.79. Grand total being 4,248,292.232.67. Again, that's 4,248,232.67 for the month of April.
Alright, thanks Steve. Is there a motion to approve the warrants as read? Terry is the first. Second. Jen is the second. Any discussion?
Laura, is this pretty typical of April?
Every month runs between 3 and 4 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot
Will
of,
it start slowing down a little bit? I know we still have
next,
salaries.
yes, now we will, that's the last push, yeah.
Okay.
There's also those months where it teeters over 4 million because you're paying an extra benefit cycle, yeah.
Payroll, so.
This one's a larger one. on the larger side. Is our carryover still roughly what we expected when the budget was prepared?
It is, I think that's next on the
Oh,
agenda
okay.
also, yes,
Oh, yes,
yes, but it
that's
is, yes.
Okay. Alright. All those in favor of approving the check warrants as read, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. Alright, Laura, the financial report.
Okay, so you have a financial report through today, May 3rd, in the drive that I shared with you, and there's also a financial report notes of interest page. But I would like to kind of work through those. Spent a lot of time this week so far and the end of last week. Just sort of, this is the end of the year, and there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of changes in revenue. Honestly, at this time of the year, they're slight, but changes a lot of lines, and then expenditures just by virtue of cleaning up POs and requisitions and working with teachers on needs and year-end spending. So I think it's beneficial to take the time to go through it. So the carryover is consistent with last month. It's about $724,000. It's down slightly, but it's consistent. But it took a little work to get there today, and I'll kind of explain why. On the revenue side, the property tax reconciliation with the general state support grant just happened. It happens every year. We get a report from the AOE based on collection of delinquent taxes and that sort of thing. They reconcile, we communicate that with the town, and then those funds, it's a complete shift from one line to another. So there's no loss there, but you'll see some big swings in the top of the revenue page, and that's what that is. Interest income, it has worked out quite well. I'm optimistic that this year will be the same, but it worked out quite well reinvesting our tax anticipation line of credit into a higher yield interest-bearing account. So the net was, if you remember, about 0.2%, 20%, and we've made about $70,000 off of that so far. But then of course we still pay interest, but it definitely is worthwhile. I'm not sure what interest rates will be moving forward. We're gonna start investigating that in the next month or so for next year, but it worked well this year. Tuition revenue on the revenue page is down slightly. I think it's 1 or 2 students, nothing major there, but it did decrease slightly. Miscellaneous receipts, you'll notice, increased about $20,000. That's, and I've had some questions from the finance committee around this. There was some flood damage in Highgate. We did a insurance claim, and we received revenue from that insurance claim minus our $2,500 deductible. Special ed revenues are up slightly. Most of that's because extraordinary cost students have increased, so more kids have gone past that $60,000 a year threshold, which means we don't get 56.5% back, we get 90% back over that 60,000. So, unfortunate that we have more students in that category, but we do get a higher reimbursement rate. So overall, revenues are up about $145,000. On the expenditure side, as I said, we've spent a ton of time. I just can't even tell you how fabulous our business office staff is. I know I do this a lot, but they work hard, and they are good at their jobs, and they really support the schools, and I think that's amazing. But lately, they've been working extra hard to help me clean up all the outstanding requisitions, support year-end purchasing, and just really review every expense, monthly reoccurring expenses and such, and make sure that we're fine-tuning those as much as possible. This year, there's even more moving parts because of all the ESSER funding, and so it's been really difficult, and I appreciate them very much helping me with that. The benefit lines, you'll notice, have all increased. That's your object code 200 in the expenditure report. Those have all increased quite significantly. We have had a lot of people taking advantage of HRA accounts and flex accounts and those benefits, and so we pre-fund that for our employees, and so at a certain degree, and so those people have been taking advantage. Those costs are up, so we had to fund another $100,000 to get us through the end of the year. We're hoping that's enough, but that's fluid. It depends on usage, so we do the best we can. I'm trying to be conservative. Both the special ed and gen ed tuition lines, those are the 500 object codes, have again increased. We continue to get some new tuition contracts for students that have needs outside of our buildings. And that's again on both the special ed and gen ed side. Special ed gets reimbursed, gen ed does not. But overall, since your last report, it's up about 50,000 there.
Just to interrupt, does that get, that gets reimbursed from where does that get reimbursed
from the state of Vermont.
And then, when they increase, is that, due to like pulling facilities or like salaries or teachers, like where is that increase from? For like special ed, like.
Yeah, this one I'm talking about right now is new contracts for students that need services outside of our building. They could be tuition or tuition outside of our building or purchase services outside of our building. And those partially due to COVID, but it can happen anyway, the special ed services, for instance, throughout the year.
So we're accommodating more students that are requesting it?
They're not requesting
No,
it, I think it's necessary.
It's through an IEP process.
And we also have gen ed students who receive services too for different reasons, and that is not reimbursable.
That's good. I just wanted to highlight that because,
Yeah.
so I've been asked that, and like that tiny line there, that like, we will find ways to give services to kids' needs, like, people don't know. They assume they're not there, so.
We do a lot of that. Plant operations and maintenance, that's your 2610 function on your financial report. Those have increased about $50,000. We continue to do as many of these small kind of maintenance projects on our facilities that we can. And at the year end, of course, the facility guys are like, can I just do this one more little thing that you told me I had to wait on? And so they're fabulous about that. So we've been working through a lot of things there, and then of course necessary repairs pop up. I think we've had some motors being rebuilt and plumbing issues and that sort of thing. So that's what makes that up. I went through all the positions, Bonnie, I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet, our HR coordinator yet. Just constant review of our financial management system and our contracts and our many memorandums of understanding that we have for supplemental pays. So I reviewed those, and we've reduced any that were outstanding that were not actually going to come to fruition. So an MOU was issued, but then that for whatever reason didn't happen with that person. So those have been accommodated. And then lastly, additional, this is where I want to talk about ESSER 2. We do have, and all year, we've had strategies about how we're going to utilize ESSER 2 to supplement our budget, where we could. And to make the best use of our ESSER 2 funding. We had big buckets throughout the year that we did that with. I think I've mentioned those, things like tutoring, support of the after-school program, transportation for that, a lot of initiatives, virtual learning, those kinds of things. But all year I knew that we were gonna get to a point where I may wanna shift more of those costs, but doing it in kind of a way that could be managed. And so we got to that point today where I saw the carryover kind of coming down a little bit because of these costs I just talked about. And so there were some other instructional technology supply expenses, mostly devices for teachers and students, and associated technology items, supply items. And so I did move about $150,000 of those costs into ESSER 2, which those ESSER 2 costs were down where I projected them to be. And so it's a bit of a shift, but it's a way of utilizing ESSER 2 funds appropriately, and keeping that carryover at a level that we had planned on.
So those are like one-time expenses, short-term?
They're not necessarily one-term, no, they're not, but they're qualifying ESSER expenses. Technology is a very easy qualifying ESSER 2 expense, and we had written a strategy for that as well, and I was under budget from what I had planned on spending, so it's just.
So were they replacement items or a whole new?
Replacement items for the most part.
Okay, so they'll last a while.
Yep, and typically we do run technology through lease cycles, if you remember, for our
That's what I
one-to-one
thought,
initiatives.
one time.
So this is helping with that expense on that side, yeah, but it's just it's an easy one, it's appropriate, it's allowable, the strategy's easy to write, and not a lot of questions asked there, so. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that, MVU had an existing capital reserve fund when you merged. It was small, but the task force had worked with the board to spend that money down. The projects are listed there. We did HVAC unit installation at MVU. We did a kitchen door access project. We replaced the trailer roof, and we did some work on the ag building access door. And so that has depleted the capital reserve fund. I have requested from the bank today that they close that account, so I just wanted to make the board aware that that's where that was.
Was that a carryover from MVU?
Yes.
The capital reserve, yep.
I was asked at town meeting, or whatever you wanna call it, second budget meeting, what happened to all the money we put in the reserve fund for the roof? Did you guys spend it for something else? And I said, no, we're working on the roof.
This is not funding the roof, yeah. The problem with this model is when you only put $100,000 in, which sounds like a lot of money, it takes a long time to get to a $7 million roof replacement, yeah.
Do we have any other funds from prior to merging that are dedicated to one specific building?
No reserve funds, no.
Okay.
The only thing that I would say kind of that works that way now is some of our smaller grants that we'll receive will be allocated to one school specifically for a specific purpose, like a wellness initiative or something.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're MVSD.
Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe we just take a little while to phase those out.
Yeah.
Well, as you were going through and you were talking about maintenance, is it safe to assume that the maintenance of people in each school have a little wish list or a necessary list at some point in time that we will address maybe in our May or June meeting? I mean, most years we have come to near the end of the school year and people come in and said, we could do this summer if we had some money.
Well, I think we've already done that when we,
Right.
we're subsidizing the HVAC project for Highgate and
Telling
things
me
like that, so I think,
list ends, has an end?
yeah.
I've never seen an end to that list.
Well, there's no end. Do they have a
The
wish
list
list? Yes,
never
the
ends.
answer's yes.
I was gonna say, 50 years I've
I
never
think
seen it.
all the planning and the work that the task force is doing, Dawn, is starting to
Oh, good.
help with that.
Alright, any other questions for Laura? Alright, thank you, Laura. Oh, you're probably staying here, aren't you? Next item is the transportation bid awards.
Round 2.
Possible action, possible executive session.
Yes. So there is also a document for the round 2 transportation bids that looks similar to what you saw last time with updated numbers. We did launch another bid. It was a quick turnaround. Those were due last Friday. We waived the site visit this time, or the pre-bid meeting, but we did solicit the same vendors as last time, so there wasn't just our 2 current vendors, there was 2 other contractors that we reached out to directly and mailed the RFP to and emailed it to them. But 2 bids were received last Friday, the same 2 bidders, but this time Grand Avenue bid on all of the schools, and MNC Transportation bid on Franklin and the MVU portion of Franklin, as well as athletic and field trips, and after-school and summer programming. The bids are, for MNC Transportation, came in lower this time. You can see the amounts in the spreadsheet, but $19,000 less in year 1, $19,950 less in year 2, $20,919 less in year 3.
Are those numbers up on the board? Or do I have to open mine?
They're not.
Do you
I
want
don't
them
know
on
if I
the
can
board?
share, if Julie maybe can.
I don't know, maybe
Either
we're
are
moving
connected.
toward executive session.
Neither of you are connected at the moment.
I can,
It's in the shared drive. Are you in the shared drive? Sorry to give
So,
you one more
I
time.
mean, we can read the
Okay.
bids, they're
Yeah.
public,
Yep.
we would only go to executive session if we were gonna talk about another contract negotiation.
And I'm
I would say we
happy to
explore it.
read those, or you can, Devin, whatever you want to.
I'll let you do it because I'm not sure I'll get all the parts just right.
Okay. So ironically, the MNC Transportation bid for Franklin and Grand Avenue was very similar. So, well, exactly the same for all 3 years each year for the Franklin portion, the elementary portion. So $150,000 in year 1, $157,500 in year 2, and $165,375 in year 3. That's the same for MNC as it is for Grand Avenue. For MVU, the Franklin portion of MVU, it was $56,000 in year 1, $58,800 in year 2, and $61,740 in year 3. For Grand Avenue, it was slightly less. For year 1, $50,000. Year 2 is $52,500, and year 3 is $55,200. So the MVU portion is a little less with Grand Avenue. Then we look at Highgate. We received 1 bid from Grand Avenue. That's $405,000 in year 1, $425,250 in year 2, and $450,000 in year 3. The MVU portion for Highgate is $154,500 in year 1, $162,600 in year 2, and $171,000 in year 3. They also did $2 a mile and $20 an hour for wait time for field trips. That's the same, sorry I didn't mention that for Franklin, but it was the same. And then Swanton, we received one bid from Grand Avenue. It was $515,592 in year one, $541,368 in year two, and $568,440 in year three. And the Swanton, the MVU portion of Swanton is $127,332 in year one, $133,692 in year two, and $140,376 in year three. And again, $2 a mile and $20 an hour wait time for field trips. We then received one bid for the vocational bus to Northwest Tech Center for MVU. It's basically $120 a trip or $240 a day, and that's consistent all 3 years. Athletic and field trips is the same, $2 an, actually, we received $2. So for MNC, it's $2 a mile or $30 an hour, and then $35 an hour, and then $40 an hour for wait time. Grand Avenue is the $2 a mile and $20 an hour wait time. And then we received one bid for both Alberg and Sheldon buses from Grand Avenue. Alberg year one is $65,500, year two is $68,800, and year three is $72,500. Sheldon bus is $54,000 year one, $56,700 in year two, and $59,500 in year three. After school and summer programming, MNC Transit, and again, this is just the Franklin, they were just bidding on the Franklin portion of that. $200 after school because it's one trip, and summer school is $400 a day because it's back and forth, so it's a round trip. So $200 or $400 a day for MNC, and for Grand Avenue, it's $150 or $300 a day for round trip.
And who had, after school last year, MNC?
The same, so last year MNC did it for Franklin and Highgate, just like they provided the transportation, and Grand Avenue did Swanton and MVU.
So is the M&C bid for after-school and summer programming just for Franklin?
Only for Franklin, yeah. It's my understanding by the bid.
And Grand Avenue knows that their bid was also for Highgate?
Grand Avenue knows they bid on Highgate, yes.
Okay.
Grand Avenue
So
bid
for
on.
summer and after school?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Are we not dealing with the issue of one contract? Or?
So Julie, were you with me in that meeting, or did I tell you about it? I can't remember now.
I was there briefly.
Okay. So I did have a meeting with the state around that. They did check with legal counsel because the two individuals that I trust very much at the AOE, long-term employees, were very puzzled by my question, and it definitely was a viable question. We all remembered that was the situation back when we merged and prior to that. But they checked with legal counsel, and we can break up this contract. Just because we are one entity, MVSD, we can award more than one contract. And there was an interpretation, they believe, several years ago that many people believe to be true, but that is no longer thought to be true. And so, but I did spend a good amount of time with them in a virtual meeting.
So I'm gonna leave this up to the chairman to say if this is an open session question. We talked on that issue last time, when they heard about what the increases were, would that bring this issue to a higher level of sensitivity? Was that part of the discussion or not?
It was part of the discussion, but basically we would have to follow state bid law, which, because we include language in our bid that says that we may award in the best interest of the school district, even if it's not the lowest bidder. And because of the way that we draft our RFP, and we say that, we're soliciting for any and all. So as long as we're clear with our expectation and how we can award, then we're following state bid law. It actually references state bid law right in our RFP.
Next question is, way in the beginning when you approach people for extending, how does the percentage increases agreed to by one of the contractors agree with their last bid? I know they had a percentage increase that you've been talking about.
So it's down about, the percentage increase is, unfortunately, I compared it to last instead of a full percentage, so I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but it's down about 12% So the increase is 12% less than it was before.
And this is for?
That's for MNC.
Okay.
The other one is still consistent. Grand Avenue bid exactly the same as they did last time.
So their bid's the same as
Yeah.
last time?
Except, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, they did. So year one, if you awarded to, if you awarded consistently with the way that we have awarded, other than Highgate, which is only one bid, the increase would be 20.3% in year one. And then year two would be a 5%, and year two would be 5.2. When we looked at the first bids in round one, that increase overall was over 25%.
Okay, so
Year one, we're definitely taking not only is there an increase for MNC for Franklin, a significant increase, but the transition from Highgate from MNC to Grand Avenue, we're seeing an increase there.
Laura, I'm sure you're talking with people about transportation bids and other bids much more than I am, but what I'm hearing, it's inevitable that we're gonna lose contractors, transportation contractors in this state. This gets us 3 years. You know, I've had conversations, I haven't had conversations, people have asked, you know, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? And I don't know what the board's gonna do, but I think whoever's sitting here in 3 years, you're gonna be faced with either this problem or a more challenging one, because people are not getting into the bus visit. And so, you know, if somebody is hanging on now, they'll probably be hanging on or gone, so, you know, it's a tough situation. But,
So, Laura, who, just to be clear on the athletics and field trips, who is providing that service currently?
Athletic and field trips currently follow our student transportation to and from school, so
Okay.
MNC does Franklin and Highgate, and MVU does Swanton.
Okay. And, are we only considering
Oh, wait,
3-year bids
I don't
right now?
think that's right. Can you say that again?
You meant,
Franklin and Highgate.
you
Did I
meant
say the
Grand
wrong
Avenue
schools?
does
I said the wrong
MVU?
schools.
Okay, okay.
The wrong, sorry. MNC Transportation
Sorry, Devin.
does
Yeah.
Franklin and Highgate.
Okay.
Grand Avenue does Swanton.
Okay.
Who does MVU though?
The MVU portions of those are the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Alright, okay.
And then are we considering only a 3-year contract, or can we accept a 2 or a 1?
You
How
can
is
accept
that?
1, 2, or 3.
Okay, I just wanted to
I
make sure.
kept that language in. I do agree with Don's point though.
Yeah, so we have a few decisions to make then, and whoever is bold enough to make a motion on this. I guess, well, we have possible funding for executive session. Does anyone feel a need to go into executive session on this topic?
Well, I guess I have a question before we do that, and that is, so only Grand Avenue bid on Highgate.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Which is a change.
So that's a big change.
Yeah, big change.
So what we're saying is Grand Avenue is the only one that bid on Highgate and Swanton. And M&C bid only on Franklin.
Correct.
And they're pretty similar when it comes to the field trips and all that, but it's basically, would Franklin kids go, like, I don't understand how that helps. Do you have 2 different people doing the field trips? Like 2 different companies doing the field trips, or how does that work? Do we give one, either that business to M&C?
Oh, I would recommend that I think anyone would recommend that they stay with the busing company that's providing their student transportation.
Okay.
Because it tends to be the same bus drivers, they know the kids. that
Okay,
whole
so
thing.
that's how that works.
That's always how it's been done. That's not to say it couldn't be awarded differently.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would like to hold a vote on this until we have executive session.
Okay.
Doesn't
I
necessarily.
forgot one point, Don, I'm sorry. There is no fuel clause, even though we put a fuel cap of $4 in this agreement, in this RFP as well. MNC still wrote no fuel clause, so they don't have a cap, so anything over $4, they would not bill us additionally for that. Grand Avenue followed the $4 that was in our RFP. So when the price goes over $4, they send us an invoice and we pay the invoice.
Yeah, so it's hard to really guarantee a maximum cost on the Grand Ave contract because of the potential for
Right, I
fuel,
can
but
tell you
it may or may
typically,
not be
typically we don't hit the cap, obviously, but this year,
We're in a little bit of a riskier situation now than we've been in.
which is why we build the cap in to try to level the playing field a little bit for everyone, but
What is bus gas right now?
I know diesel fuel's at $6 a gallon at some places, but I don't know exactly what they're paying right now. They were closer to the $4 to $5 when we spoke last.
Because I was gonna say, if it's at 6 right now, it's definitely gonna go up.
I would think so.
I mean, we're definitely gonna have to pay a cap, because if the cap is 4.
I would think so, but for how long, I don't know.
So everybody running diesel buses.
Devin, you have Peter again with you.
Peter?
I wasn't clear on the MVU portion. I thought that M&C did the athletics for MVU. Is that not true?
They do all of the athletics for MVU, but currently they do. But the way
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm reading their bid, which is not on the bid forms that I prepared, it doesn't appear that way to me. It appears that they want to do, let me see, let me look again now that I spent a couple days. So they want to do extracurricular trips for Franklin, which means field trips.
But they don't want Albert or Sheldon.
Nope, I'm sorry, and they do want for MVU, so that's why I put it under MVU, sorry. So if you look on the sheet, on athletics and field trips per mile, under MVU as well as Franklin, there is a $2 a mile and a $30 an hour, 35. I think I read that earlier. Yep,
But they currently have that for this year.
yes, they do. Yep.
Okay.
So Don's requested executive session for,
On the transportation, because of the contract, I also want to.
It's contract.
Well, I think I have a question regarding personnel, and I don't think it should be held in open session.
okay, so we'll have a finding for executive session to discuss personnel on this. Now, there won't be discussion coming out of executive session.
Just a motion.
Just a motion, so, if anyone would like to share their thoughts for the public record, this, I guess, is the only opportunity right now, so, all right, not seeing any. All right, so we will bring that to executive session, possible motion after. Next on the agenda is new hires.
No, I need this back so I can read the names of the wonderful new hires that I met. So, next time we will come with even more, I am sure. We would like for you to make a motion to approve the hires of the following new teachers. We have an Emma Holcomb, who will be a classroom teacher in Highgate, and Laura Allard, who will be a classroom teacher in Highgate. For MVU, we have Elizabeth Sweet, who will be an ag science teacher, and Alexis Bagnosh, who will be an ag program teacher, I think in resource management. And we will have Jessica Kolk, she goes by Kyle Kolk, as the new MVU librarian. And we are excited about all of those hires.
All right, is there a motion to approve the new hires? Toby's the first, and Joanne is the second.
It's as recommended.
As recommended, yes. All right, any discussion?
Hopefully we'll move along.
All right, all those in favor of approving the new hires as recommended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstentions? All right, motion carries 9-0. Okay, all right, strategic planning, board training retreat discussion, Julie.
Well, I have been in conversations with Tracy Wren, who's former superintendent in Lemoyle South, who's been doing some strategic planning and board development with some school districts around Vermont, and she comes pretty highly recommended. So I was able to reach out to her and have her pencil in July 12th, which is a Tuesday of the only week in July Devin is available, so we picked that week. That also was the only week she was available, so that worked out really well. And I am gonna be speaking with her tomorrow, but, you know, we will have her connect with you, Devin, as well, and talk about it in board goals, about what we wanna do on our retreat day. But strategic planning is more than a day, or more than an afternoon. It's a process, but we would maybe begin our kickoff, and she would work with us on what it looks like and how to take our goal setting and turn, not that the board wouldn't set goals for itself, because I think that's a nice process for the board, but in terms of our district goals, which we probably won't change tremendously since we're very invested in that work, but how to create a more comprehensive strategic plan with benchmarks and report dates and so forth.
So, my big question for that is, do we have enough of this group available that week? So I don't know if you all have
What
made
day
some.
of the week is it?
I picked a Tuesday.
Tuesday, July 12th.
Oh, it's fun.
Just wanna do a schedule check on that before we commit.
So is that daytime or evening?
Last year, we did an evening, and we just made it earlier. And we had a, approve the warrants board meeting, and that was it, and then we dedicated it to board training.
It looks good to me.
Okay.
It's fine for me, I don't know.
I'm not seeing anyone saying they're on vacation
Saying
that
that
week,
they-
so
We
I
have
know
another
things.
meeting in Maine.
Things may change, so that's fine, but.
That is a retreat.
We'll move forward on that planning then.
Okay?
Alright, anything else on that, Julie?
No, I think for now, we just wanted to make sure everybody was on board before we move forward.
Alright, next item is administrative contracts, with action. Julie, if you just tell us what positions we're.
We would be looking at issuing, we have letters of intent for all our administrative positions, but these are our principals and our director, licensed administrative positions. And we usually have a conversation in executive session about that. But we have looked at the typical increase and a couple of positions being right-sized where there were stipends, and we wanted to make those more appropriate. So we'll talk through that in executive session.
Alright, so we'll make a finding on discussion of administrative contracts for executive session. Next, we'll also note that this does include superintendent contracts. Alright, next is multiple student enrollment requests, which we'll need some action on.
Yes, so, sometimes I put the possible finding for executive session. In this case, I don't know whether the board wants to do that. At this time of year, we're starting to get more requests for families. I have 2 requests here. I expect there will be several more as we come toward the end of the school year. Families who have moved to St. Albans or Sheldon or other places and want to have their students remain in school for the rest of the school year. I would actually make a recommendation to the board that you give me authority to allow those students to stay between now and the end of the school year, and because I expect that there would be some more.
I would make that motion with the stipulation that the parents be responsible for transportation.
Alright, so Dawn has made a motion to allow any students who move out of the district to remain in their current school for the rest of this school year, provided they give their own, provide their own transportation.
And I have to tell you that the motion I just said, the transportation is not legal if they're homeless, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know, we always check.
Pursuant to applicable laws.
Yes.
All right,
Peter has
I see Peter have your hand up. I'm looking for a second at the moment though, and then we'll come back to discussion.
Second.
Peter's the second, all right. Any discussion on this?
Is this something we should have is this something we should have a policy on?
I believe it is.
And when
One-
we,
one
I thought
person's-
Swan had a policy at one time after April vacation, but maybe it was just a,
I think it was an
Agreement.
informal.
It may have been just an agreement, I didn't see a policy, but we'll see.
Never mind.
No,
I don't
I
know.
It would-
actually don't remember one.
It would save this motion every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also would give people, like, you know, they'll know not to
Yeah.
ask till that now.
It would help families plan, if they're trying to,
Yeah.
if they have particular goals for that,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I agree, that could be a policy in the future. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 9-0. All right, we're on to future meeting dates. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is Tuesday, May 17th at 6:30 p.m. That will be at the Highgate Elementary School Library. The facility committee will be meeting on Monday, May 16th at 6:30 at central office. The board goals committee will be meeting Tuesday, May 10th at 6 p.m. at central office. And will there be online links to all of those available, Julie?
I will discuss with each committee person.
Committee
whether-
chairs
yeah,
will, there will be an online link for the regularly scheduled board meeting.
absolutely.
All right.
is the board goals committee considering doing a resolution proposal?
Yes, so, we don't have board, we don't have any, well, we have resolutions here on, our
Yeah, it's on the
Future
agenda.
agenda.
But Terry, if you'd like to make some
Well,
comments on
we're
that.
hoping our agenda item, that's one of the items, and in fact, we were hoping, I should get in touch with you because you might have some wording you would suggest, or you might want to come to the meeting, whichever is.
We're getting in person somewhere.
In central office.
South office.
Yep.
I'll try to put free, I'll certainly be there. If you have it, if you just look at the format of the SBA, of past resolutions, it'll give you a pretty good idea.
Okay.
But certainly, when the technicality, you can get back into the need, people retiring, the need for trades. I'm sure you'll do fine, but I'll try to joke.
Or you can check it afterwards or something, we can take a 10-minute, you know, because we've got so much to do at this next meeting that we're gonna probably be spending about 10 minutes on that resolution, so I'll do some pre-homework and check it by you if I can.
But the topics being considered for resolution are around, more flexibility in the tech programs, the regional tech programs, to try to maximize student attendance in those and availability. And then the other is around the issue of bonding school boards and asking for a statewide resolution to that essentially. So those are the.
Thank you, and the other thing I would ask is, you know, we just set a date for the retreat, and we would like to hear from people before Tuesday, if we possibly can, as to what your ideas are that you would like us to do at the retreat. Or, you know, obviously, we want to do strategic planning, but is there anything else or anything particular you want us to look at? You can let us know.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Future agenda items, we have a long list here, so we'll be looking for guidance and apprenticeship data presentation and a personalized learning plan update. We have the audit report that will be coming to us, the annual audit. An update on grading and transcripts, that's a follow-up to the, what's it called?
Proficiency transcript
I think
conversation.
we told people by August we would
Right.
say something, we didn't say
Yep.
what.
We'll have a portrait of a graduate presentation,
Yeah.
an end-of-year recovery plan update, board resolutions potentially, like we just talked about. And we'll be seeing continuous improvement plan.
That has to be approved, I think it's gonna be the June meeting, because it doesn't get submitted till August this year for some reason.
Now, I noticed it's singular here. Will it be one per building or one for the district?
I have heard Kosha say both things.
Okay.
That it will, because I think they're allowing us to roll it into one, because it's a time, Jen is nodding her head.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
remembering something similar. I think it's two-step. I think there's the district plan and then we can write sub-plans.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's required to write sub-plans.
And it's tied to our recovery plan, so they've changed the model
Mhm.
again.
Gotcha. All right. That concludes the regular portion of our agenda. Do I have a motion to enter executive session, inviting Julie in for the principal and directors and transportation portion?
Do you want Laura for that part too?
Laura should be in transportation.
Okay, and Laura for transportation. And that will be it, I believe.
I'll be happy to make that.
Terry is the first. Is there a second? Rennick is the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Peter, was that a yes or a no? The timing's a little weird. That's a yes. All right. Motion carries 9-0. We are in executive session at 8:26. We are out of executive session at 9:22. We have a few motions regarding the transportation contract, and then we'll go back into executive session to discuss the administrative contracts. We wanted to get this part on camera. So, do I have a motion to award to M&C Transportation the daily elementary routes for Franklin and the MVU students from Franklin, those daily routes, and associated field trips in Franklin, and Franklin After School and Summer Program for 3 years, and to award to Grand Avenue Enterprises, again for 3 years, the daily routes for Swanton and Highgate students to those schools and to MVU, the MVU vocational routes, and the Alberg and Sheldon routes, based on the long time commitment and service to the district of these two companies.
I think you missed, that was a good job, but you missed the the Highgate field trips and extracurricular, and Swanton field trips and extracurricular. I didn't hear you say that.
Sorry, you're right, I didn't say those, so.
And after school and summer.
For Grand Avenue, we will add to that motion the Swanton and Highgate field trips. And then for both M&C and Grand Avenue, the after-school and summer programs for the associated schools. So for M&C, that's Franklin.
Nice.
For Grand Avenue, that is Swanton and Highgate. Did I get everything there? We can sort that out for the minutes. All right, do we have that motion? Terry's the first. Is there a second to that? Rennick is a second. This is coming from executive, so there is no further discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries 9-0. Peter is online voting, just so folks know. All right, our next component to this, thanks Laura. Do I have a motion to award the three-year term for MVU athletics and field trips to M&C Transport? And this would be to avoid additional disruptions in the best interest of our students and in considering potential economic impact to businesses in our community.
There you go.
I'd like to make the motion for M&C for the MVU athletics statement that you read earlier on behalf of it.
All right. Feel good about that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay.
And I have no problem with that.
Okay.
But I do have a problem with asking for a specific
Yep.
motion.
I'd like to hear the rest of it in the motion. I think it's important for the record,
okay.
since we can't discuss things.
Yep, I can read that part of it. Are we recording again?
Yes.
All right. Peter, you'll have to yell it really loud, cause I don't think the camera's gonna hear you. We'll have to reiterate it.
I would like to make a motion to award M&C the transportation for all MVU athletics with the, and I don't have the exact wording for the reasoning, I'll let Devin finish that.
So Peter, we're looking to award a contract for MVU athletics and field trips
And field trips.
for 3 years. For 3 years, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And that additional piece to add to that motion is to avoid additional disruptions in the best interest of the students and in considering economic impact to businesses in our community. Is there a second to that motion?
Second one.
Rennick is a second. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
All right, any abstentions? How many do we have there? So we had that, motion carries 8-1. All right. We are all set with the. Okay. So, now, I'm looking for a motion to enter executive session to discuss administrative contracts.
I'd make that motion.
Terry is the first, Joanne's the second, those in favor? Aye. Aye, those opposed? No, motion carries 8-0. We're in executive session again.